Hi there and welcome everyone. Have you ever wondered how maybe you could make a difference? Well, believe it or not, you can. It's probably not as hard as you might imagine. We're going to be talking about that today on this week's edition of the State of Greater Western New York Report, which as always is brought to you by those fine folks from... Each week, our community makes history. Each week, you make history. And each week, there's only one source to turn to for the first take on history. You know what that is? Subscribe to the Sentinel right now to discover the history being made in your own backyard. The Mendon Honeoye Falls Lima Sentinel. More than just your news, it's your history. Welcome, everyone, to this edition of the State of Greater Western New York Report. Join us each episode as we discuss fantastic topics ranging from history to science to the strange and the wonderful, as well as the treasured spirit with which our region has infused America. We challenge you to consider all things Greater Western New York, from our region's very beginnings to how it inspires, how it empowers, and why it is so admired. Here's the host of the State of Greater Western New York Report, Chris Carosa. Well, welcome everyone to this week's edition of the State of Greater Western New York Report. I got it right. We've got a couple of guests today where they're going to be talking about Project Civica, which is really a grassroots organization that is trying to give people a chance to say what they want to say, encourage them to do that, and really build a lot of citizen engagement in the political process. I'm going to have both of our guests independently introduce themselves because what I like about this program or this effort is that really it's statewide. And you're going to see that represented here by the guests. And we're going to let's start with Kim. You're from Western New York. So tell us a little bit about yourself and maybe what prompted you to get involved in Project Civica.
Hi, yeah, I'm a Western New Yorker. I live in Erie County, and the 2020 election, the COVID issues in 2020 got me involved and off the couch in civics. And so I was involved in an election integrity group and decided after speaking with many volunteers that people have incredible ideas, but they lack the ability and the way to take action on those ideas. So a group of us started Project Civica just this past January, and we have been super active doing so many things. And I just can't believe I can't even keep up with how much energy our volunteers have and what they're involved in. So, and we do everything from in the political process and the election process, everything from looking at county voter rolls to helping encourage candidates to run for election.
Very good. So now let's go over to Stephanie. Stephanie, you're from a different place. So tell us about yourself, where you're from, and how you got it started in this entire endeavor.
Thank you, Chris, for having us today. I am from the complete opposite side of the state. I am in the Bronx, New York. That is one of the 5 boroughs of New York City. And I was born and raised here and moved back home about 24 years ago. And again, in the 2020 year, we watched so much happen across the country, and so many election integrity teams took hold after that election. And Kim and I had met in another team. And when she decided with Danielle, our other co-founder, to start Project Civica, I thought, absolutely, this is absolutely what New York needs. A team of people who are innovative and smart-minded with the knowledge behind us and the relationships across the country behind us, that we can create the groundswell that's needed in New York, across the state, in every county, every one of those 62 counties. We can affect change for elections, not only this year, but in years to come.
Thank you, Stephanie. Now let's actually bring you both on, and I'll go off the screen and you guys could talk, but tell us a little bit about Project Civica, when it started, how it started, who's involved, and maybe just the beginning information. We'll get into some more details after the break, but we want to know in general, how did Project Civica come about?
It started initially with just Danielle and I, and Steph also talking about what we could do to affect change in New York. New York just seems to be, at least in my opinion, going very much down the wrong route, not responsive to the people and what the people want. And how can an ordinary citizen affect change? And we do it together. We, like I said, Americans and New Yorkers have tremendous ideas. And if we collaborate together and coordinate together, mentor each other, we can take some of those ideas and make them effective and create change. And so one of the first things we did actually was work on, and I shouldn't say work, volunteer, because all of us are volunteers here at Project Civica. But one of the first things we did was poll watching training. And we had a team of folks out poll watching for the presidential primary in New York, all across New York State. And we collaborated with another organization to do that and got eyes on the election process. And that's one of the things we offer, is the ability to get in on election day and watch the process and watch what's happening. And if you find something, it's a place that, you can go back to us and we can coordinate a response if needed.
Stephanie, you were involved in the communications aspect, or at least that's where your specialty. What's the response been as far as you've seen in terms of Project Civica?
It's really been a positive force, whether it's in our weekly statewide meetings or our team meetings, going out and collaborating with local organizations across different counties. The energy in people and the acceptance of the work that we're doing is tremendous, and that people really get inspired. And not only do they want to volunteer, they want to bring their family and friends and get everyone they know involved. So that's really been the greater part of anything, is knowing that just from our little cell, our ideas, our concepts, and how we were able to build it and market it, and that everyone agrees with us. Everyone feels like New York is a this or a that. The one thing we always forget is that New Yorkers will never check a box. We don't fit inside of a box. We're individualistic, and we all have our own mindset and our own ideas because we're a melting pot of many cultures. And Project Civica really does reflect that.
Kim, we were talking earlier about the difference between, and correct me if my terminology is wrong, poll watchers and election inspectors. Is that it? Can you?
Yeah.
So I didn't know what it was. And I'm sure a lot of people out there in TV land, or whatever you call this, also don't know what it was. I was confused. I didn't realize there was a difference. Tell us what the difference is.
So we have poll inspectors or poll workers. Those are the folks that work for the Board of Elections, get paid by New York State, the Board of Elections, and they operate our elections from early in the morning till the end of the day. It's a long day, but those are the folks that really make our elections happen. And they are extremely important. And there's actually a shortage in New York State of people working. So I want to encourage everybody out there. I see it as a patriotic duty to go out and apply at the Board of Elections, your local county Board of Elections, and to work as a poll inspector. Poll watchers, those are the observers, okay? So you're volunteering and working with a campaign usually, especially for a primary election like we've got coming up. You would be working with a campaign or a political party, or it could even be like a political action committee if there's a poll ballot initiative up on the ballot. And you volunteer and you are observing the process for your candidate or your party to make sure that the rules are being followed and everything is fair on the and transparent on the playing field.
So just to be clear, on the poll inspector, which is the one where you have to work from when the polls are open to when the polls are closed, you do get paid, but it's not a full-time job. So you can have a regular job. As long as you're available on election day, then you can serve as a poll inspector, get paid for it. Those are the people, I think, who just cross off your names, say what's going on. And we're getting a question from the audience here.
I just want to add there's also early voting in New York State, right? So if you are working as a poll inspector, you might also be working during that early voting as well.
Right. The question we got from the audience, interesting question. Only Democrats and Republicans are permitted to be election inspectors. Is that true, as far as you know?
Mm-hmm.
Yes, that is true. Yes, it is.
That
100%.
change was made, excuse me. That change was made in 2012 when the Constitution of New York State was adjusted, and they made it a two-party state. So it did not acknowledge any other party line. It just acknowledged Republican Democrat line. So we think a lot of that concept comes from the change in the Constitution.
So what happens if you're independent or if you're registered as a conservative or some other third party? Are you basically out of luck?
I would say let's volunteer as a poll watcher then. Be an observer in the process. You can email us at info@projectcivica.org. We have nonpartisan poll watching, which is actually better because then no one's affiliated with a party that way. You do have to get your credentials from a party, but it's nonpartisan. So I would absolutely say, can be a poll watcher. It's the perfect opportunity to get eyes on the system.
Do you think maybe that because they changed this law, so only Republicans and Democrats can be inspectors, that might be the reason why there's a shortage?
Possibly, but I also think it's because people are busy. It's a long day. I just did it this past presidential primary worked, and you have to be there pretty early in the morning till after 9 o'clock at night. So it's a long day, and people have busy lives. It's hard, I think, to, for people to clear out the time to do that. And that's why I emphasize the fact that this is part of our civic duty. Our civic duty isn't just to go vote. Our civic duty is to to work in the process. Elections can't happen unless we have election inspectors working. And they're a big part of the system. So like our military men and women, they get deployed, they work in horrible environments sometimes doing their job. And we as citizens, can serve our country, serve our state by just taking that one day. It's just one day. We can do this.
Now, do you know offhand if that 2012 law or constitutional change was ever challenged by the underrepresented parties? Can they challenge it? Go ahead, Stephanie.
I don't believe so. And there were other changes in that amendments to the Constitution that should be looked at again as well. It's they took away the right for a recall option of our elected officials, and there was one other. Kim, do you remember there was one other thing that got changed with that Constitution amendment?
Did they take away ballot initiatives in that same thing? Yeah. I'm not sure if it was that. Yeah.
That was the other item. So we're no longer able to petition for a ballot initiative across the state. I believe the 5 boroughs retain that. They took out, they made us only a 2-party line, and they took away our right to recall our elected officials.
Wait, hold on.
It's only at the state level, though. Okay, so locally at county level, you still have the ability to do ballots, initiatives, citizen initiatives, and recalls.
Oh, all right. So when you say boroughs have that initiative right, also the counties theoretically have it. Okay.
Cities, yeah.
The cities only, or the counties, or the cities and counties?
City and cities. So cities have that ability. So think of it, it's easier just to explain it as local politics. County local politics have the ability to do recalls, to do citizen-led ballot initiatives, those kinds of things. But the Constitution of New York State has been very slowly stripped of a lot of the ability of the citizens to impact the state level government over the, probably much longer than even, 2012 or, so it's been over many years, all that's been stripped away. And one of the things we're trying to do is actually bring that back. We have a team working on the idea of a ballot initiative to try to bring that back, to work on the idea of bringing back recall of our elected officials at a state level as well.
Interesting. Is there we're going to have to take a break. There's just a whole line of questions we can get into. We'll save that maybe for another show, because I do want you to talk about your initiatives when we come back after the break. And as we've already seen, folks in the live audience, if you want to ask a question, go ahead and pop it in the Q&A, and I will read it to our guests. Right now, let's take a short break. We'll be right back after this message. Through the mists of time, nature and man have both created and buried treasures beyond the imagination. With the ages, these riches slowly dissolve into mere myths until they are forever forgotten. But there are those brave souls who tirelessly cling to the truth, ever seeking to discover the undiscovered, to reveal what has always been there, to uncover the hidden gems of a land thought forsaken but loved by millions. "50 Hidden Gems of Greater Western New York. Discover the secrets in your own backyard." Buy your copy now at 50hiddengems.com. Hey, welcome back, everyone. We're here with Stephanie Liggio and Kim Hermance of Project Civica, and they're going to be telling us a little bit about some of the initiatives that Project Civica is actually doing right now. And the one that struck me initially when we talked about this earlier was the fact that so many assembly members are running unopposed, primarily downstate, which is your background. Stephanie, tell us a little bit about that and why it's important that we actually have people running against them.
The main reason we have elections is to give people their voice and their choice. And when people don't have a choice, it gives them less reason to come out to vote. So in New York boroughs, Bronx, Manhattan, Queens, and the Bronx, primarily, Staten Island is a different situation. There were 48 vacant seats within the Assembly and Senate for elections in 2022. Based on those numbers, our co-founder Steve Gillen went about looking for candidates in the 4 boroughs that could oppose those incumbents this election cycle in 2024. With that, out of the 48, we were able to achieve 14. So combined with the efforts in upstate New York with new candidates, with new visions, and new innovative ways of campaigning, we hope to be able to make a change in Albany so that the supermajority will be no more. Because as we can see from the passages of the laws this year alone, we can see that there needs to be change in Albany. There cannot be a one-party rule because it affects New Yorkers from top to bottom. The migrant situation is that people are leaving New York. We have citizens and businesses being uprooting from New York and moving across the country to other states that are lower taxes, different lifestyle, better school choice for their children. So all of the obstacles that they face in New York, they don't have in other states. And just having that one-party rule is just another thorn in their side, and they decided to leave.
So, and does this initiative have a name? I can't remember if you have it. These initiatives, by the way.
Yeah, Fill the 48.
Fill the 48. Right. Okay. Because you have a couple of cool things, I thought, on the website. By the way, the website is projectcivica.com. Pretty easy to remember. And
it's projectcivica.org.
Okay, not easy to remember. Projectcivica.org. My apologies. We'll just put, you know what, I'm going to put it, I'll put it up there later. But you had another one with a snappy kind of slogan. Kim, you want to tell us about that one, if you remember what I was talking about?
I think you were talking about the Dead Voters Society.
Yes,
right?
The Dead Voters Society. Tell us about that.
So that came out of an effort of actually people in Western New York mostly who were really interested in their local voter rolls. And when we were looking at it and trying to decide what we were going to focus on first, it seemed like the easiest thing to do was see if dead voters really vote, right? So we coined the term Dead Voters Society. And what we have done all across the state is look at senior citizens mostly, and we took Nice Voter, which is the New York state level voter rolls, using birth date, figure out who voted, looking at voter history. And we actually go through it one by one, looking for obituaries to see if some of these folks who are voting, who are older, senior citizens, are alive and well and should be voting, or if they're actually dead. And we've definitely found some. One of the ones that strikes me the most was a gentleman down state. He is a Medal of Honor winner. I don't want to say any names. He's been dead for several years and is still voting. And that just really, it's just so awful to me that somebody has basically stolen his identity and his patriotism, and his name, and continuing to vote in his name when he's actually passed away, and he's a Medal of Honor winner. So, in terms of privacy, I can't really tell you names, but we found many people, in similar circumstances, which really dishonors their memory.
Now, what happens in this process? You're coming up with this evidence. Who do you present it to, and what do you expect to happen once it's presented?
So in the case of somebody who's been dead, say 10 years and has been voting since 2020 or longer, I mean, that's actually voter fraud, right? So that information, along with the evidence, can be presented to local law enforcement, your sheriff. Also, we intend on bringing it to the Board of Elections as well, so they can look into it.
There we go. Make sure I got that right. So I don't want to.
Yeah, there it is.
Yeah, you could go there. You can see exactly what they have listed. The Dead Voter Society. I just really like that. It's snappy. So if it's fraud, well, what would be the obvious way to prevent it? So we're not talking about after the fact. We're talking about before the fact. What can and should be done? What are they allowed to do now? Let's start with that. What are voter or I guess it would be the election boards? What are they allowed to do now to prevent this from happening?
Well, there's rules at the federal level and the state level of how they handle records, right? So at the federal level, there's legislation that, they're supposed to periodically look at who's not alive and remove them from the voter rolls. And actually, if you haven't voted for 2 federal election cycles, that should make you inactive as well. So this is, a process that they're supposed to go to. One of the things I want to point out, and I just think it's something that people don't commonly think about, is, when your loved one passes away, to make sure that you notify the Board of Elections. And if you call them and ask specifically what they require, usually it's, something, legal that you would actually have to submit to them, telling them that your loved one, has died. And also when you move, that's something people don't think about either, right? We're real busy notifying everybody, the gas company, the electric company, friends, family, and no one notifies necessarily the Board of Elections. And so making sure put that on your checklist when you're moving, that you're also notifying the Board of Elections of your move. That would probably go a long way to eliminate a lot of the problems we have with all these extra registrations that are still present on the voter rolls, because now the Board of Elections has to play catch up. They have to go to the national change of address, which is run, a data list run by the post office, and play catch up and try to find these and remove them. And our Board of Elections works really hard. I mean, they are trying to, keep up with lots of changes, and a lot of times the law doesn't necessarily help them do their job.
So speculate on how dead people can vote. Does somebody go in there and say, I'm this person and they're faking it? Or are there other ways they could do it?
Well, I would say mail-in voting, mail-in ballots are a big reason, right? It's very tempting for people when the ballot, especially if you're a senior citizen and you've had some mobility issues, maybe you're on the permanent list for an absentee ballot. Now you've passed away, the neighbor knows you've passed away, or somebody else now is in your apartment, that kind of a thing. It's very tempting for people to vote on your behalf, even though, but that's, that's illegal. First of all, it's illegal, and ethically, it's just awful.
And this really, this phenomenon wouldn't necessarily be new or COVID related, because you could have been doing mail-in ballots for a long time. So it could go back, right?
Yeah, I mean, COVID definitely accelerated the problem, not just in dead people, just overall of people moving out and, others voting in their name and stuff like that. I mean, during COVID, pretty much everybody got an application for a mail-in ballot. Back then, if you remember, a lot of the guidelines and laws that we have that protect our election system from, apparent fraud or possible fraud was removed. And, that just made it much easier for people to do.
So,
and then
go ahead, Stephanie.
The state actually had a ballot initiative regarding the mail-in ballot that was voted down, and they implemented it anyway.
Oh, right. I remember that.
One party rule. Think about one party rule and what it does.
Yeah, I mean, doesn't matter what party it is. I don't think having a supermajority is a good thing on either side. I mean, our republic thrives on discussion and interaction and different ideas. And when one party, just basically can do whatever they want, it just doesn't. It's just not healthy for our republic.
So why didn't somebody challenge what they did in court, or did they? In terms of this ballot initiative that failed, but they implemented it anyway.
I believe the Republicans did.
Oh, and it didn't pass muster in court?
I'd have to relook that up again. I thought the Republicans did challenge that. Do you remember stuff at all? I would have to do a little research on that one to make sure I'm correct on there. But I thought that it was challenged again.
Oh, well, we have a few minutes left, and I do want to give you guys a chance to talk about your list of what you call your contract. Highlight some of that for the listeners.
The common sense contracts for New York is actually a work in progress right now. So if anyone wanted to take part in a focus group to be part of penning that actual contract, we'll have Steve come on with you and explain more of it. But these are the 7 issues across the state that most people feel are the most important to focus on in the state legislature at this time. So once we craft all of that language, we'll come back and have a conversation just on that, because I feel like you can fill up your audience. Will have a lot of questions about it, and I think they will appreciate the work being put into it.
So right now you just have the 7 categories filled out. You don't actually have what they mean, correct?
Well, we know what they mean. It's just the actual language. We're trying to get some feedback on how it should actually read. But we do know what the topics are. For example, immigration, sanctuary state status, the economy, energy jobs, right? Upstate New York, just to bring it back to Western New York, we have so much natural gas, right, in this area. So just that idea, parental rights is one, election integrity. So there's 7 different topics like that where most New Yorkers, regardless of party, do agree.
Right. And you can go to the site and look under common sense contract with New York, and you can see what they have listed there. And they're inviting you, everybody out there in TV land, they're inviting you to participate with them to try to draft the language. So this is definitely an opportunity for you to become more involved, not just watching polls. I mean, this is actually crafting language, things like that. There's it really gets down to the basic civics that if you think about how America was founded, it was founded by all these town hall meetings. Ultimately, that's what it came down to. That means regular people were talking about what seemed to be major issues. And they were all talking about the same thing, and it built this synergy up, and they decided, hey, you know what? We should be an independent country, and we'll celebrate that in a month or so. But this is your opportunity to get involved now, granted at the state level. I mean, before we go, we're going to have to break pretty soon. But you do have county strategies or county efforts. So you don't have to just be talking about the state. If you get involved, you can focus more locally if you like. Well,
Chris, if I may,
go ahead.
one of the things, what was that?
I'll move out of the way so people could see you talk.
Oh, okay. I was just going to say that one of the things that discourages people from voting is this idea that they don't know who the candidates are. And that's one of the challenges we're trying to address with the Common Sense Contract with New York. In other words, if you vote for a candidate who has signed the contract with the Common Sense Contract with New York, you'll know what they stand for and what they believe in. And we're also trying to do that down at the county level as well, so we understand and know what the candidates are, what they stand for, and hopefully encourage voter participation. And the last thing I wanted to say is I always tell people, stop watching history. Start participating in history. We're in historic times right now. There's just some incredible things happening internationally, nationally, at the state level, locally. And instead of just watching it on your TV, start participating in it. So you'll have some stories to tell your kids and grandkids about how you worked to create keep our republic going in New York State and the United States.
Well, thanks, Kim. Thanks, Stephanie. And thank you all for watching. Remember, if you want to be a member of the live audience, which is the only way to ask questions of our guests, go to stateof.greaterwesternnewyork.com and just sign up. It's free. And then every Thursday morning, you'll get the super secret invitation that allows you to get into the live studio audience where you can then watch the questions. And I realize not everybody can watch it live. I mean, people have to work, and this is on Thursdays at noon. So you could just go to that same site, stateof.greaterwesternnewyork.com, and watch old shows, previous shows. They're all there. Otherwise, if you do like to be surprised and watch it unexpectedly or expectedly, every Sunday at 1:30, the show is rebroadcast on our Facebook page and YouTube channel. Like the page, subscribe to the channel. Those platforms will notify you when the show starts. So that's all for this week. Thank you all for being here. And as always, we'll be seeing you next week.